As the soft glow of twilight fades into the velvet embrace of night, imagine yourself settling into the gentle cradle of your bed. The sheets whisper against your skin like the lightest summer breeze, cool and inviting. Your breath, slow and deep, rises and falls like the distant tide, carrying you further into this quiet sanctuary. Close your eyes now and let the world beyond dissolve, leaving only the rhythm of your heart, steady as a lullaby. Tonight's tale unfolds not in haste, but in the unhurried flow of dreams, where warmth meets wonder, and every step leads deeper into peace. In a sleepy village nestled between rolling hills and whispering pines, there lived a firefighter named Elias. He was a man of quiet strength, his days spent in the rhythm of readiness, polishing brass helmets that gleamed like autumn leaves, folding hoses with the care of one tending a garden. But on this particular evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of rose and gold, Elias found himself drawn to the edge of the old mill by the river. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and wild lavender, a perfume that lingered like a forgotten promise. He paused there, his boots sinking softly into the mossy ground, feeling the earth's gentle pulse beneath him. With each breath, Elias allowed the day's subtle tensions to drift away, like leaves on the current. And you, dear listener, can do the same. Let your shoulders soften, your limbs grow heavy, as if the bed beneath you is an extension of that same forgiving earth. The mill, long abandoned yet cherished by the village, stood like a sentinel of stories untold. Its wooden beams, weathered silver by time, creaked faintly in the breeze, a sound as soothing as rain on a distant roof. Elias had always loved this place. It reminded him of childhood hearths, where flames danced not in fury, but in playful harmony with the shadows. Tonight, as he wandered closer, a faint glow caught his eye. Not the sharp crackle of alarm, but a warm, diffused light, like embers cradled in silk. It emanated from within the mill, soft and inviting, drawing him forward with the pull of a half-remembered melody. The door, ajar like an opened invitation, sighed as he pushed it gently, releasing a breath of cinnamon and smoked honey into the cooling air. Elias stepped inside, his movements slow, deliberate, each footfall echoing softly against the worn floorboards, textured like the smoothest river stone under his palms. Deeper into the mill he ventured, where the light bloomed fuller, revealing pockets of gentle warmth. What he found there were not raging blazes, but a living tapestry of flame, soft, undulating waves of orange and amber that licked the air with feathers of heat, neither scorching nor swift, but languid as honey spilling over porcelain. These were the inferno pups, as the villagers sometimes whispered in tales spun by firelight, not beasts of destruction, but playful spirits born of the earth's quiet fires, guardians of hidden hearths. They frolicked in the glow, their fur shimmering like molten gold, tails curling in lazy arcs that trailed sparks like fireflies in twilight. Elias watched them, transfixed, as their paws padded soundlessly across the floor, leaving behind imprints of warmth that seeped into the wood like sunlight into soil. The air hummed with their presence, a low, resonant purr that vibrated through his chest, syncing with the easy cadence of his breath. Feel that hum now, if you will, resonating in your own core, inviting your muscles to loosen, thread by thread, as you sink deeper into repose. Among the pups, nestled in a cradle of woven reeds softened by petals of dried rose, were the kittens. Tiny, ethereal creatures with coats of cream and shadow, their eyes like polished moonstones reflecting the flame's tender dance. They mewed not in distress, but in the soft curiosity of newborns awakening to wonder, their voices a chorus of velvet murmurs that blended with the pups' purrs into a symphony of serenity. The kittens had wandered into this haven, seeking shelter from the evening's chill, drawn by the inferno pup's innate call to warmth and safety. Yet the flames, in their eternal, unhurried way, had woven a gentle veil around them, a shimmering cocoon of light and heat that held them close, like a mother's arms in the hush of midnight. Elias approached not with urgency, but with the reverence of one entering a sacred glade. He extended a hand, palm upturned, and the nearest pup nuzzled against it, its fur warm as sun-baked linen, carrying the faint aroma of toasted almonds and fresh rain. As Elias knelt, the floor met him with a sigh, cool and yielding, grounding him in the moment. The kittens stirred, their whiskers twitching like delicate ferns in a zephyr, and one by one they stretched languidly, arching backs that gleamed under the fire's caress. He gathered them into the fold of his jacket, the fabric a soft barrier of wool scented with pine soap from his morning routine. Each kitten settled against his chest with a contented trill, their tiny hearts beating in tandem with his own, slow, rhythmic, like the ticking of a grandfather clock in an empty room. The pups circled closer, their eyes twin pools of liquid amber, watching with approval as Elias rose, the flames parting before him like curtains of silk drawn aside by invisible hands. The heat enveloped him now, not as a trial, but as a balm, warming his skin with the subtlest glow, easing the faint ache in his shoulders from the day's quiet labors. And as you listen, let this warmth imagine itself around you, a soft blanket of light that coaxes your eyelids to flutter, heavier with every exhale, tension melting away like dew under dawn's first touch. The dash, but it was no frantic sprint, no clamor of boots on cobble. For Elias, it was a dream waltz through the mill's heart, a slow unfurling of path amid the flame's embrace. The pups flanked him, their forms flickering like candlelight on water, guiding with nudges of nose and tail that brushed his legs with feathers of fire, tickling, teasing, yet infinitely tender. The air grew thicker with scents of caramelized sugar and smoldering sage, a bouquet that filled his lungs and slowed his steps to the pace of a heartbeat. Outside, the night had deepened, stars pricking the sky like scattered embers of their own, and the river murmured its eternal lullaby, lapping at the banks with silken persistence. Elias emerged into this nocturne, the kittens purring against him, their warmth a living ember pressed to his heart. He carried them to the village green, where dew-kissed grass yielded underfoot like the finest down, and there, beneath an ancient oak, whose leaves rustled like pages in a forgotten book, he set them free. Not free in abandonment, but in gentle release, a placing down upon the earth, where the grass cradled them as surely as any nest. The kittens blinked up at him, their eyes wide with the innocence of stars, then tumbled playfully into the undergrowth, their paws leaving trails of silver in the moonlight. The inferno pups lingered a moment longer, their forms dissolving into wisps of smoke that curled upward like prayers,
carrying whispers of gratitude on the wind. Elias stood there, alone yet utterly at peace, the night's cool breath mingling with the fading warmth on his skin. He felt the world expand around him, vast and velvety. Every sound, the hoot of a distant owl, the sigh of leaves woven into a tapestry of tranquility. His body, once held in subtle readiness, now surrendered fully. Limbs heavy as river stones, mind adrift on currents of calm. Breathe with him now, letting each inhalation draw in that same peace. Each exhalation release what no longer serves as your body sinks deeper into the bed, cradled by invisible arms.
Word of the rescue spread through the village, not as gossip, but as a shared exhale. A story told in hushed tones over mugs of chamomile steam, where the scent of honeyed herbs evoked the mill's lingering glow. Elias returned to his cottage, its thatched roof a crown of shadows under the moon, and kindled his own hearth with twigs gathered from the green. The flames there were modest companions, leaping in slow, hypnotic spirals that cast patterns of gold across the walls, textured like the grain of ancient wood. He settled into his armchair, worn leather sighing beneath him, and let the fire's murmur wash over him, the soft pop of sap, the whisper of heat against stone. The kittens, it turned out, had found their way to the baker's hearth, curling among loaves still warm from the oven, their purrs mingling with the yeast's sleepy rise. The pups, ever elusive, were glimpsed in sun-dappled glades, their golden forms a promise of warmth in winter's approach. In the days that followed, Elias walked the village paths with a lighter step, the earth seeming to rise gently to meet him, its textures richer, the velvet of moss, the silk of fallen petals underfoot. He spoke little of the night, for some wonders bloom best in silence, their essence lingering like the aftertaste of a fine tea. The villagers, sensing the shift in him, gathered more often by their own firesides, sharing breaths of story and song, the air alive with the subtle alchemy of connection. And Elias, in quiet moments, would close his eyes and recall the dash, not as memory, but as a living dream, where flames were friends and rescue a ritual of release. Feel that ritual now, woven into your own unwinding. With every breath, invite the warmth to soften your edges, to dissolve the day's faint echoes, allowing sleep to approach like a beloved companion, soft-footed and sure. As autumn deepened, the leaves turned to tapestries of crimson and amber, drifting down in spirals that mirrored the infernal pup's playful tales. Elias found himself returning to the mill often, not in search of adventure, but in communion with its quiet spirit. The flames had dimmed to a perpetual ember, glowing like a hidden pearl within the walls, and on still evenings he would sit by it, tracing patterns in the ash with a finger, swirls and waves that evoked the river's flow, the kitten's graceful arches. The air carried traces of that cinnamon warmth, blending with the crisp bite of falling frost, a harmony of seasons in gentle transition. One such twilight, as the first stars kindled overhead, Elias heard a faint mewling from the reeds, a new litter, perhaps kin to the ones he'd freed, drawn back by the mill's enduring call. But there was no haste. He approached as before, with palms open and heart steady, the kittens tumbling into his care like petals on a breeze. This time, the dash unfolded under a canopy of twilight, the path lined with fireflies that pulsed in rhythm with his steps, slow, swaying, a procession of light through the gathering dusk. The pups reappeared in fleeting glimpses, their fur aglow against the indigo shadows, nuzzling the air with scents of toasted oak and wild thyme. Elias's jacket, warmed by the mill's kiss, enveloped the kittens in folds of softness, their tiny forms rising and falling with his breath, a shared tide of serenity. Upon the green once more, he released them to the oak's shelter, where moonlight filtered through branches like threads of silver lace, and the grass hummed with the night's subtle songs. The kittens scampered lightly, vanishing into the understory with chirps of delight, while the pups faded into the tree line, leaving trails of warmth that lingered on Elias's skin like the memory of a tender touch. He lingered there, the cool dew seeping through his boots, grounding him in layers of earth and sky, body and breath aligning in effortless unity. Let this alignment find you too, your form settling deeper, breath a bridge to dreams where every release invites slumber's gentle tide. Winter came softly that year, blanketing the village in a hush of snowflakes that fell like whispers of forgotten lace. Elias's cottage glowed against the white, its windows framed in frost that etched patterns of fern and vine, delicate as breath on glass. By the hearth, he recounted the tales to himself in murmurs, the fire's companions, logs sighing into coals, sparks ascending like liberated thoughts. The inferno pups, it was said, slumbered through the cold, their essence woven into the earth's core, awaiting spring's thaw to dance anew. The kittens, grown bolder, were spotted in sunbeams on cottage sills, their coats fluffed against the chill, eyes half-lidded in contentment. Elias's days flowed in this rhythm, mending nets by lamplight, the twine smooth as river-worn pebble in his hands, strolling the snow-muffled paths where each crunch underfoot released a puff of crystalline air, crisp and alive with pine. One starlit eve, as the wind sang its low aria through the eaves, Elias dreamed himself back to the mill. The flames bloomed eternal, soft as the first light of morn, and there the pups and kittens gathered in a circle of glow, their forms blending into a single pulsating warmth. He dashed among them, not in speed, but in spirit, a weave of light and shadow, freeing not from peril, but into boundless peace. Awakening, he felt the dream's residue, a profound ease, as if his very bones had been steeped in chamomile, softened to the core. The village slumbered around him, roofs dusted in peace, and Elias knew this was the true gift of the inferno, not conquest, but surrender to the fire's quiet wisdom. Carry this wisdom with you now as the story's threads loosen. Let your mind drift like snow on the breeze, body heavy and held, each breath a step toward the velvet heart of sleep. Spring unfurled its greens with the patience of petals opening to dew, and the mill stood renewed, vines climbing its walls in tender spirals scented with honeysuckle sigh. Elias visited less often now, content in the knowing that the pups and kittens roamed free, their paths intersecting his in fleeting joys, a golden flash in the meadow, a mew from the thicket. Life in the village mirrored this flow, bread baked with embers' warmth, stories shared under blooming boughs, the air rich with earth turned and flowers' first blush. Elias's strength, once a vigilant flame, had mellowed into a steady glow, illuminating without consuming, present without demand. And so, as seasons cycled in their eternal waltz, the tale of the inferno pups and the firefighter's dash became a legend of release, a reminder that even in warmth's deepest heart, there lies the space for letting go. Elias aged gracefully into this truth, his hair silver as the oak's bark, his steps measured as the river's curve. On quiet nights, by his hearth's faithful light, he would smile to himself, feeling the echoes of purrs and crackles, the textures of fur and flame against his soul. The world, in its vast soothing expanse, held him as surely as it held the stars, their twinkle a distant purr, their silence a profound embrace. Now, as this story draws to its close, like the last ember fading into ash, let its essence settle over you. The scents of lavender and cinnamon linger faintly, the warmth of imagined fur against your skin, the rhythm of gentle paws padding into dreams. Feel your body, heavy and whole, sinking ever deeper into the bed's welcoming hold. With each breath, tension dissolves like mist at dawn, carrying you toward sleep's open arms, peaceful, profound, and utterly yours. Good night, dear listener. May your dreams be a mill of wonders, soft and eternal.